Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Craig Burrell, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Navy is Lieutenant Cecilia Berryman. We warmly welcome the family of Private George Hockley Elwood, whose story will be told shortly. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland, who are watching broadcasts of this ceremony around Australia. During the ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by family and visitors. Please join in singing the National Anthem. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand, what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit in the hearts of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and other operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today we pay tribute to Private George Elwood. Born in Stanthorpe, a small town in southeast Queensland, on the 15th of January 1919, George Hockley Elwood was the son of Edgar and Maud Elwood. George grew up in nearby Applethorpe and following his schooling was employed as a traveller purchasing engineering supplies for a Brisbane firm. On the 18th of February 1941, Elwood enlisted in the 2nd Australian Imperial Force. He marched into camp and commenced his training in Queensland before embarking in Sydney for overseas service on the 8th of April 1941. Arriving in the Middle East in early May 1941, Elwood was posted to the 2nd 31st Battalion, which was part of the 25th Brigade of the Australian 7th Division. Previously based in Britain, the battalion had only recently arrived in the Middle East, where it had taken up garrison duties in Palestine before moving to Egypt. It returned to Palestine at the end of May to take part in the 25th Brigade's first offensive operation, the invasion of Vichy French Syria and Lebanon. The 2nd 31st Battalion's first major engagement in eastern Lebanon was around Kirba between the 8th and 11th of June. After this, the battalion was ordered to capture the town of Jazin, which controlled one of the lateral routes to the coast. Jazin fell to the 2nd 31st on the 14th of June, but was heavily counter-attacked by the Vichy French on the 16th. The terrain around Jazin was steep and rugged, and the fighting was exhausting. It was during the fighting around the town of Jazin on the 25th of June 1941 that Elwood was fatally wounded. He was 22 years old. His body is buried in the British and Commonwealth War Cemetery at Beirut, Lebanon. George Elwood's name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my left, among some 40,000 Australians who died while serving in the Second World War. His photograph is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private George Hockley Elwood, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world. They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them. Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozieres or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the last post ceremony. Thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and good evening.